All right, everybody. I want to thank you for coming out to today's podcast. Very excited on this particular topic and to have Jeff Walter from AECom and Salla Eckhardt from OAC joining our call today. Um, we're very big on taxonomy. The whole way our product works is to scale on taxonomy. And you just see all this stuff about AI in the press and data-driven decisions. But the old adage, I thought at least, holds that garbage in, garbage out, right? So how do you prepare your data? What data are you analyzing? What are the use cases? And there was actually a piece in January in Construction Dive about how AI is here and it's going to transform the industry. But they call out the fact that data is siloed. There isn't connection of data to the other vendors and partners on a project. That's a problem, right? And so that's my contention, is that if you don't have your house in order, AI is only as good as the data it has to chew on. So with that, I'm Joe Gigrich. I'm the founder and CEO of ProjectReady. On the call today is also Shaylee Modi Oza, who's our head of development. And Jeff and Sal, if you'd introduce yourselves.
Thank you. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. I'm Salla Eckhardt from OAC Services, and I'm currently the Senior Vice President of Commercial Market at OAC. It's our largest market, and it is the largest opportunity for having discussions like this today. So thank you so much for inviting me on board.
Yep, thank you.
And hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Walter. I'm sitting in Toronto, Canada here. I'm currently the digital consulting lead for the Canada region at AECom, as Joe mentioned, helping clients go through a lot of the similar challenges that have been prefaced here, but definitely also come from a background of big infrastructure delivery, having been involved with a number of large infrastructure projects, from big complex bridges to subways, etc. And like to keep my feet on the ground in terms of what's happening there, as well as kind of like guiding different clients and to those challenges as well. So that's my background. Yep.
Okay. And trying to figure out the best way to kick this off. Can do something semi-cute. What does AI mean to you? Where do you see the application of artificial intelligence being applied in the industry, both based upon your experience and where you think it's going?
Do you want to go first, Salla?
Sure. Where I see large potential is in the generational transformation that the industry is going through, as it's going through its digital transformation, and both journeys or tracks are never ending. But what I see that AI can do is to put more human-centric approach into the projects, and AI can do a lot of the tedious or labor-heavy, burdenous jobs that people these days are not necessarily interested in doing, but they need to be done and they need to be precise and verified, etc. But AI can help us elevate our skill sets and make more room for more in-person or teamwork online using digital platforms, and give people more the opportunity to exchange thoughts and brainstorm together, innovate more, as they don't have to be working heads down on the traditional processes and deliverables.
And what about you, Jeff? What's your take?
Oh, that's I really like the fact that Sal, that you led with the human kind of side of AI. I think it's as we're all seeing kind of in the news and the industry. I think everyone's trying to kind of scramble to find kind of the balance between the human component of kind of these emerging technologies and not losing those elements and empowering them really with this type of technology, but also realizing, I think, the technical and kind of efficiency potential of AI. And AI, like, to me, like, does cover many different kind of elements. One is dealing with this type of structured information that we're kind of talking about today. But there's a lot of different kind of other kind of areas for AI application. But I think generally, like, where I'm seeing from my lens, the kind of greatest opportunities emerge is really where the most data is, right? And the real kind of application of these types of technologies into kind of our industry, I guess some of the early challenges was kind of having kind of enough data to help support kind of some of those outcomes. And I think in certain areas of our industry, we're starting to see kind of the rapid kind of exponential kind of curation of data in different kind of areas of our industry. And I think that's kind of representing kind of opportunities for AI. And I guess, where I guess, the earliest kind of like signs of kind of it applying to our industry and kind of again related to how much the scale of information is, starting to look at big picture scenarios. And whether it's from a sustainability picture or operational or analytics, being able to see big picture and kind of like get insights and kind of start to understand kind of where those futures could potentially go. That's where I'm kind of seeing a lot of opportunity kind of sitting present. So, the big picture where data is kind of flowing up to high levels of potential insight.
So the human element obviously counts. Everything is to serve man, not to reference the Twilight Zone, if you know the episode. It's a great episode. But no, but the question is, so where are you seeing AI applied now? And what are some practical applications that you see immediately and sort of desired outcome? And Salla, if you would like to start.
Yeah, I think a majority of AI usage now that is still very early on in its development phases is in verifying or confirming people as decision makers that they are making the right choice. Uh, People like to have some kind of a nudge that yes, you're on the right track, keep going, and AI is providing that because it's so quick at analyzing the data into information and refining it into information that then becomes knowledge for people, that we can almost have responses or replies instantaneously, rather than spending a lot of time doing research and verifying what we already think is the right choice. And then people tend to be visual thinkers and consume information differently and also comprehend and interpret information differently. So having AI support creating unanimous understanding of what the implications of a decision are. I see people use AI for that and using especially visual tools that run on AI to seek the understanding and alignment with the rest of the project teams so that they are not in misstep or having blind spots or gaps in their own knowledge. But AI is really giving us that extra confirmation that we need as human decision makers as our projects are becoming more and more complicated and complex. And hence, the risk related to finances or project budgets are becoming greater as well. Um, but AI overall is in early stages of usability for the built environment industry, but there's a lot of promise in it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and it strikes me that just picking up what you said, yes, it's the human element, but at some point, for democracy to move forward, you have to stop voting, right? And so, if I understand correctly, one of your contentions is that AI can settle debate. Good debate is a healthy thing, but too much debate leads to uncertainty and then it becomes a guessing game. Is that fair?
Exactly. Thank you.
Sure. And Jeff?
No, that's really interesting perspective there for sure, and definitely, I can see the capabilities of supporting decision making and traceability and kind of auditability are kind of key kind of elements around AI for sure. Um, I guess just a couple of thoughts on practical kind of examples of that I'm seeing kind of in the built environment. I know this is not about kind of product marketing here, but definitely AECOM has been involved with the development of tools and toolkits that are supporting AI for clients. And, for example, pipe inspections, which is just as, I guess, hardcore infrastructure as you can get. Many times those inspections involve like spending countless days and weeks going through video and then trying to identify different kind of outcomes from that. And so we're leveraging AI technology from a video and image recognition perspective to essentially, allow that individual to free up more time to do other things instead of kind of doing a lot of that processing. So there's a lot of kind of practical advancements where you're seeing large volumes of information again, whether it's structured data, unstructured data, video, that kind of. So there's real kind of practical application there. But I think maybe kind of as it relates to kind of where we're going in terms of integrated kind of data environments and silos of information. And, from my experience working on large infrastructure projects in Salla, you can definitely kind of attest to this. Many times you are kind of dealing with, again, on a very scaled level, different software sources that are producing and curating data. You could have schedule information, cost information, asset information, sustainability information, all these different sources of information related to the delivery of that project or program. And, and I can definitely see like, a maturity in the market in terms of being able to integrate kind of those sources together and, normalize and report, et cetera. But, really, I think there's a great opportunity for AI that I'm seeing to add layers of kind of context for information in different silos, right? And I think that's kind of like a kind of real kind of practical application as we're, starting to invest a lot in kind of infrastructure growth in North America in general, is kind of getting a grip on kind of contextualizing information, getting more insight from all of these, typically siloed kind of sources of data.
So two things I would add to that, and I do want to bring Shaylee into the conversation as well, is for one, I was reading a very interesting article. I believe Hungary is the country that's leading the charge on the application of AI to mammograms. And it's much, because what brought it to mind was the pipe thing. There's so much data to sift through, and they found that now with AI, they're getting better predictive outcomes of finding things earlier and of a particular type. And so this is sort of a wide applicability, I guess, of one of those applications of AI. And the other thing, there's a slight pivot. We just did a couple of podcasts around the art of the possible, which is really about the emergence in the industry of more and more and more standards to exchange data. And so Shaylee and I just discussed this at length. And, Jeff, you mentioned unsiloing data. What's everybody's view on how to get the industry together and to get that data in a way that people can start to share it and make sense of it? Or is that too open-ended a question?
It's a good question. Overall, like the discussion about how people might start to adopt the new digital platforms and digital tools, we definitely need standards so that everyone has the same platform to start building on top of. And there are rules that can then be applied into the processes that actually need to be pre-engineered now that we're introducing AI as a new coworker into the mix. So overall, taking the approach of being very inclusive and taking the approach of open data as much as we can, but not forgetting about cybersecurity and data security. So it's a different discussion and rabbit hole, but creating opportunities for citizen developers as well as professional developers and engaging people into collaboration. That's the key. That we've all been part of all kinds of standardization groups and small R&D groups, etc. And we've all seen that, we kind of boil the ocean as a small team, but then others couldn't keep up. And I'm hoping that with AI and with greater amounts of usable data and more verified data, higher quality data, we can actually crowdsource more of the development of solutions rather than keep it siloed into small groups that will make leaps but then it's hard for others to follow.
Yeah. I can definitely add on to that, just in terms of kind of I totally agree with that. It comes back to this question of kind of getting data and the best foundation for kind of value and growth creation there. But just in different practical kind of application of standardization and compliance. And I know, Salla, I mean, we're both kind of interfacing with different kind of groups that are, looking at the life cycle kind of information and infrastructure, and how to manage kind of that work, the data flow through that life cycle as well. We're certainly at AECOM on projects, we're definitely being influenced right now by things like ISO 19650 information management requirements, which is a kind of life cycle kind of compliance requirements, auditable, traceable kind of environment for delivering infrastructure, and that's really like changed a lot of perspectives and focus for data management in the built environment, is having those compliance requirements coming through on our requirements for projects. And as well, certainly on the environment and sustainability side of things, regulation around data management, capture, validating, engineering is also becoming important as well. So I can see kind of a few different kind of emerging kind of regulatory and kind of compliance elements impacting kind of our industry as a whole. And I think that, like you were saying, Salla, is also an important kind of way of kind of getting that data into a foundation for creating those opportunities.
But, practically speaking, so the legislation will drive the final, how can I put it? It will drive the final drive. It will finally force the industry in large measure to start to come up with more and more consistent standards across organizations and platforms. Is that fair?
It's definitely been a big push for sure. I mean, I think inherently it would have happened maybe naturally, Salla, I'm not sure. But I mean, this definitely accelerated maybe kind of the industry.
Yeah, I have a lot of clients. I don't think it would have happened naturally, personally.
Maybe.
And I've borne witness to Salla's comment about boiling the ocean. I've been in panels and the like, and I'm like, can we just agree on 5 terms in a submittal that we can pass data on? Not like this full overlapping ecosystem, but just to start to chip away at it. And that's my personal view on it, is that the industry is so used to engineering big things, they're not addressing the small things that are really hamstringing that effort. Now, from a technical perspective, Shaylee, what do you see some of the challenges around getting sort of consistent data around, and how AI could apply, and where you see the limitations for AI as it relates to data purity, if that makes sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I think just definitely to start with, like all of you mentioned, having some sort of a standard in place is something that is very difficult to achieve. But starting small and having some sort of a starting point where we have standards and how we can start aggregating the data in a way that it makes that data meaningful. The key ingredient where then AI and machine learning can start to even help would be that the data needs to be accurate, the data needs to be in a particular format where the AI can essentially make sense of it. So I think from a technical side, having all of these various data systems where the data terms are kind of standardized, bringing that together in a way that it has that kind of a fixed, reliable, high quality data, which can then be used to analyze. And it would essentially have that layer of machine learning on top of this data, which would then essentially help these systems to learn. But I think that the biggest technical difficulty here is it needs a lot of advanced hardware and software, which is very expensive to even kind of get that in place to begin.
But that's the cloud, right? I mean, they've already done that.
And but essentially having that training, what kind of a workflow are you looking at? Is it we can take an example of, let's say, change orders happening in a system. They are kind of tracked differently in different systems, but having that kind of a layer on top of your data, how long does it take to get information in? What are the costs associated with a particular phase of a project? And once all of that data is kind of hosted in a system, having that AI layer that makes sense of it and gives that accurate analysis essentially of data, which we've been talking about, it's kind of going to help the managers and the people who are working in these systems to essentially basically get that kind of analysis.
Yeah,
So,
it's like I
yeah.
used to be a researcher in college for the Russell Sage Foundation, and I would go to the bowels of the New York Public Library, lifelong New Yorker, and I would go into the basement, but at least I had a card catalog system. So, I was talking to a friend at Microsoft, and he goes, well, AI, you can look at and do semantic matches. Yes, and I could also walk through the stacks of books in the New York Public Library and eventually find that book.
Yeah.
But clearly, the Dewey Decimal System was invented for a reason. I think it just had its 130th birthday, in fact. My wife was a librarian, but it's near and dear to me. But that's where I really think the garbage in, garbage out part comes from, right? Yes, you can have a data set, it can chew on it, but all these things, all this FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt that you see about ChatGPT. Oh, the answers are wrong, or they come back hostile. It's because the quality of the data is awful. So
Yeah, and that can
please.
and that can cause like a lot of issues because users are still trying to get used to even relying on AI, and incomplete and incorrect data which can just mislead and cause a lot of problems while we are in these early stages. So I think it's very important to get the first
Mhm.
part right,
Mhm.
where the data that goes
Mhm.
into these systems is organized properly.
Yeah, I'm kind of, again, just to kind of bring back that pipe example. Like I've been seeing this kind of firsthand, the effort in terms of maturing kind of the quality of an AI solution, right? And when you think that you have it ready and learned and ready to be something, there's something else that always kind of comes. So I think definitely starting from that foundation is important, but it is definitely an evolving thing, right? And I guess I was gonna maybe ask like you guys' perspective on this as well. Is like, yeah, like within the context of organizations and projects, like how do you put kind of like as this becomes an emerging kind of area, how do you put the quality kind of control in place to make sure that that data and those results are kind of like meeting those needs?
That's a good question, Jeff,
Yeah.
and I'll hop into the discussion at this point because we thought about the same question a couple of years ago. That's why we delivered a project for data master plan to respond to what Shaili said, that starting small so that it's something that is manageable for people,
Mhm.
but then allowing change to happen too. Because if human beings, we want AI to always execute the same process and deliver the same outputs, we can never expect a different outcome. And that's why I'm curious about creating a data master plan that will allow creating different nodes as milestones for the data that is actually being delivered, and creating different kind of paths to achieve the outcomes that we want to achieve, and that way enable that continuous evolution and development by using AI. And that way we're not continuously repeating the same process and same outcomes and outputs, but really enabling the AI to support us in improving. And that's why we need to have the data master plan so that we're not overwhelming people with big data and expect them to be able to comprehend it all, but really make it more targeted and meaningful and enable people to grow the number of different nodes and the different milestones, and that way have that continuous evolution and development as a whole.
And that would be applicable to an individual company and very much needed
Exactly.
for the entire industry.
Yes.
So basically approaching data like you would a building. We're going to do the foundation and then we'll do the scaffolding or whatever it may be, little bits at a time. I'm all about steady incremental progress. It's been the lesson I've learned in life.
One of the, I mean, again, this is just kind of like, I know there's an industry kind of level of kind of conversation there, but even I'm seeing in something like the ISO 19650 kind of requirements on delivering infrastructure. I mean, there are elements in documentation as part of that uh, uh, um, create a scenario where you do have to present those data, that data master plan, in the sense that you're talking about, Salla, where you're giving those milestones exactly when every kind of component of that asset is being delivered to the construction, to the trades, to the operator. It's a full kind of data map of a potential project, and that's contained within that. Now, I haven't kind of like fully seen that kind of implemented yet, but there is a structure there for kind of a data master plan and some of that compliance. But yeah, I like that idea, data master plan, for sure.
That's great. And, this also makes me think of the other thing too, is what do we mean by data? Like it's like AI itself. It's such a big term at the end of the day. There's a lot of data out there that has to be massaged. And I think you can run these things in parallel. Like the industry, obviously, because you build amazing structures, will look at data for, well, you can apply it to a digital twin, et cetera, and so forth. Obviously, our bailiwick is the transactional components, the collaborative components that exist in a project, both within your team and externally. So is it accurate to say then that your data master plan, are they run in parallel? Is it one big plan chipping away at all these different corners? I don't know if the question makes sense. Like you have a lot of data to wrestle, and they have different applications that you're going to want to apply AI to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, thinking about like how to apply AI for delivering the data master plan or using it as a platform for project delivery. Once you have the master plan, then AI can start doing the pattern recognition and recognize if there is anything that is an outlier in the data that is being used. And that way it's easier to course correct just in time rather than wait for issues to become problems later on and then they become more difficult to fix because then you don't exactly know where the pivot point happened. So the data master plan, it's kind of a live document, so to speak, but it has the core structure of what needs to be delivered at what point in time and what nodes can fill in the gaps of data and what can AI continue to learn by itself based on the data that it has access to. And that way there might be multiple different journeys or paths that it can take in order to achieve the final outcomes that we want to achieve. And that's what I see as the potential usage of AI, that is not a single direction journey. There can be multiple paths and they can crisscross and merge
exactly.
and then divide again.
And how those multiple paths kind of are enabled, I think. And I just maybe like this is a segue into kind of the data master plan also kind of becoming, I guess part of it is a metadata master plan. And certainly, like, as you're saying, Salla, like there's the great opportunity once you starting to aggregate kind of all these silos of information and getting to a level where you're able to identify those gaps and potential outcomes. Sorry, guys, I just lost my train of thought there.
No worries.
Yeah.
I think I get what you're saying, Jeff, and it's where I'm going with your thought track is that once we start having AI recognize some of the paths and start to understand where data is actually created and produced and where it's consumed and where it needs to be refined into information, then we can start seeing that which paths need to be amplified and which paths can already be retired from the overall process. And that way we can start simplifying the construction processes that we are managing today, because not all of them need to exist as we go through the digital transformation.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder there. So definitely, like exactly what you said in terms of like how metadata potentially fits into that is, in that kind of in the common kind of data master plan, where we're collecting, I think there is an opportunity to add new layers of context to that information that, again, like I was just kind of mentioning, enable those pathways in a sense, and maybe even create new pathways that might not emerge from just kind of that's structured, I guess, regular data. So I think metadata becomes an important part of kind of like seeing those opportunities.
And metadata becomes, I mean, it's all metadata on some level, right? But metadata, I think in the more traditional context, it's the lingua franca, frankly, if you're going to be exchanging data. And it's the layer of language humans can most heartily sort of belly up to the bar on, as opposed to underscore this DBO object. What's the metadata, right? The metadata is how humans, I think, interact to describe things. And then you can have a common vocabulary.
And I think that's maybe like where like a great opportunity for AI is to kind of like is to be able to rationalize all that, right?
Oh, and analyze it too. What's the
right,
most common term set people are using?
Right.
Yeah, definitely adding that layer of advanced analytics on top of this. That's what makes it so powerful. It can kind of recognize, looking at the metadata, the trends, and how it changes across the project. And essentially that's what makes it that powerful for sure.
So I guess in any kind of decision-making scenario on a construction project or whatever, the more kind of that contextual information, that's, and the kind of intelligence that kind of comes with that, creates those opportunities for different scenarios in terms of how a decision is made. Again, getting outside the box, Salla, and everyone knows here, like sometimes the linear thinking that we take when we're approaching decisions, whether it's only cost, only schedule, sometimes like that's the only focus, but, having kind of that wider lens, it kind of empowers those different kind of solutions.
Yeah, it tends to be myopic. Just the accounting system, just my one system, just my one silo, just my one company. Is that where you're going?
Yeah.
Well, I guess this is been on this for a while. Maybe it's time to start to move toward a wrap up. So, the challenges we know are getting standards opened up, the continued maturity of APIs to even allow these systems to connect, the trust in the governance of the exchange of data. Personally, I think anonymized data would go a long way in the industry because then you could share more effortlessly and having more standard terms. But with all of that, have everybody take one more whack at where do you see, just one more time with feeling, where do you see it really having immediate value and long-term where you think AI will really be an effective tool to drive data-driven decisions? Too many drives, but.
I think when it comes down to decision-making support, I think it also comes down to the speed of kind of that feedback loop. I know, again, I think we're all been around the kind of digital twin kind of concept where, you're kind of using kind of a digital asset model to drive kind of feedback loops in information. And I think AI is going to help support that kind of digital twin kind of feedback loop process. And whether it's like, an architect who's, using Revit and kind of like chatting with a bot that's kind of like supporting kind of decision-making in that way, or it's, rolling up, managing big portfolios of infrastructure, and getting faster kind of feedback loops as part of that overall digital twin approach. So I think there's a unique link between the emerging concepts around digital twin and AI, and but it's all really about kind of like a feedback loop.
Right. And the quicker you can make these informed decisions, the less risk, the less rework, the less disasters, better bottom line. Yeah,
for sure. I think it's, and again, I'm not saying necessarily that efficiency is the only kind of outcome of that kind of, that opportunity there. Because certainly, as we just kind of talked about, kind of opening up those channels for emerging ideas and solutions, new thoughts in that feedback loop is also really important.
Gotcha. Salla?
Yeah, I see potential in multi-generational organizations that we can actually upskill the new into the industry people and reskill those that already think that we know it all, and that way create completely new level of organizational wisdom of how to carry on as the projects become more complicated and there are more demands from the developer side of what they want to achieve with their project, etc. So it's AI is a very healthy way of challenging what we think is best and creating that healthy conflict without crushing anyone that is collaborating with us or working on the same projects. So I welcome AI as a new teammate and a new partner
And an
in our
arbitrator.
industry. Yeah.
And Shaylee?
Yeah, I think all of the above, and I would only add that we are in the early stages of adapting to AI right now, and as it becomes more in use and over time, all these algorithms that are in place, once they get more enhanced, they kind of learn more over time, and it's only going to make these predictions even more precise and effectively just get better with time. I think so. We're going in the right direction, but just the more it's going to learn itself. So I think the more data goes in, the more algorithms it's fed in, the more effective its output is gonna keep getting better.
And I guess my final comment would be sort of what the topic was, that as data improves, as its relationships improve, as standards improve, as AI, because of how much it can do for your bottom line, much like ISO 19650, they drive an outcome, right? So you want to use AI, you need to have better communication of data, better standards of data, better taxonomy that scales. If you want to take care of 19650, you need to be able to, same thing, right? And so those are the other two trends that I think, not just the tech itself that's driving this, but that there's this understanding that for this to go well, the quality of the data, the interchange of the data, that, you know, you got to clean up the room so there's no garbage going in so you can get quality coming back out. All right, that's my last piece. Look, I want to thank everybody very much for taking the time out today. We're going to continue to do these things. Jeff, Salla, again, thank you very much. And Shaylee,
Thank you,
always.
guys. That was nice. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Right.
This
Thanks,
was a
folks.
pleasure.